Hi, BookTube. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and originally I was going to do the thumbnail, but when I first attempted to film this just a few seconds ago, I put them down. It would be just too hard to grab them. It would, so I'm being lazy here and not gonna pick them up again. So I watched Murthy Napier did her video last night on her favorites so far this year, so I figured, you know what, I'm gonna go do that as well and list my favorite books so far this year. And one of them I don't have anymore in my possession. That's because even though I consider it a favorite book of the year so far, I don't see myself reading again because it was just it's a plot that it's a plot that definitely gets you thinking, but it's a plot that's just like, it's such a dark story that even I don't know if I would. So let me go ahead and start with that one since I don't have it to show you. And that is High Rise by J.G. Ballard. So I had heard about this first because there was an actor. And since then I did realize there were other actors that I liked in the movie, but one of the main actors was one of my favorites, and that was Tom Hiddleston. He plays one of the main characters in the adaptation. So I attempted to watch the movie when it was on HBO and on HBO Max, and then I decided after starting it that, I'm gonna go ahead and get the book. Or actually, no, scratch that. It was actually something where I saw the book at the roast office, and I was like, let me get this, and I'll go ahead and read this before. Because it's not a big book. It's not a long book. And I decided, let me read this first, and then I'll watch the movie. Of course, the movie got taken off of HBO Max, so I'll keep an eye out for it again now that I've read the book and have better understanding of what happens in the plot. And this is definitely a very food for thought kind of story. And I actually did a review on it earlier this year. I can't remember when I read it. It might have been back in March when I read it. And it's just such a disturbing book. It's one of these books where you think, what would I do in this situation? Like, would I act this way, the way these characters are acting? It goes down a very dark and dangerous road. Like, they're put in this situation where where they have to they become more primitive and more wild. And I definitely elaborate on this in the review, so I'm not going to say a lot. But it's just really disturbing, not in a creepy monster kind of way, but kind of like one of those where the humans are the true monsters kind of way. It's definitely worth checking, and it's not that long. But yeah, it's really good and just really and like I said, because of how disturbing it is, I don't see myself reading it again, but I am very glad that I read it and gave it a shot, because I did enjoy it. Okay, so next, I'll just present them to you and how I have them stacked. So next is one I read more recently back in May. That is Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. I love this book. I wasn't sure if I would because I'm not the target audience, and sometimes middle grade for me is starting to be with YA where it's kind of hard for me to really connect with because I'm not that age, and sometimes, especially middle grade, the writing style is hard to connect with. But what's nice about this is because it's an older work, it was written in the 1900s originally, so the writing style's a lot more, I can appreciate and enjoy the writing more, and it doesn't feel as as simplified. Like, I feel like middle grade, it's written for a younger audience, so they're still kind of, they're getting close to their teenage years, but they're still kind of young. So it's written for that mindset with the writing style. And but with this, I feel like a lot of older classics for kids, for younger readers, has It's hard to pinpoint, but anyway, enough time at the writing style. But this is such a cozy read, a great read for springtime. I love Anne as a character. She's so lovable. I can understand where some people might. Now there is potential for her to be annoying at times, I think, at the same time, but she always cares about everybody. She's very passionate. She's a very emotional person, almost to the point of overdramatic sometimes, but it can be very amusing. And she tries so hard and often makes mistakes, but I just love her journey, growing up, and just trying to, learn about her new home and her new, foster parents, the Cuthberts, and just like trying to, experience the world. And it's just, and I feel like the most recent adaptation, it's been a long time since I saw that miniseries from the 80s, but I did see it, and it's just been so long that I barely remember it. But that newest adaptation, which sadly is only 3 seasons, but it adds to the story, I think, because it does explore a lot of things that the book, because it was written in the 1900s, did not explore. That I could see where it could do that. Like, although for some people, I think, I read one reviewer that feels like it can be hand-fisted at times. I can see that. Definitely there's definitely an agenda with that adaptation. It's on Netflix, by the way. Like I said, it's only 3 seasons. 10 episodes per season. But I think it definitely adds to it. But this is just such a cozy, fun read. You just, like I said, you just love Anne. The characters are great. I just recently watched Tristan the Classics, and we're talking about his video on humors, and in older literature, sometimes I wonder if some of these characters be considered humors, like, but yeah, I love this book. It was so much fun. I'm so glad I finally read it. I already have the second book, so I will be starting it soon. I don't know when, but I definitely want to, I'm definitely going to continue with the series. Okay, so the next one is a play, actually. So, I said that I want to try to read the plays by Shakespeare that aren't as talked about a lot, and this is the most recent one I purchased, and that is The Merchant of Venice. And I don't know, I don't know why people, I think I know why people probably don't talk about this one as much, with the character of Shylock, and how the play looks at Jews, I think, and the Jewish religion, like how the character is treated and drawn for you. But I thought it was actually a pretty good, entertaining story. Like, this guy wants to marry this girl, and he, anyone that wants to marry her and him, the guy's name is Bassino? I still don't know. My dad told me how he thinks you probably say it, but now I don't remember. But he has to, him and her other suitors basically have to choose between these 3 chests. You have a chest with gold in it, or they're made out of. One of them's a gold, one with gold, and one with lead, and one with silver, and one of the chests has a portrait of the woman Portia in it. And, they have to choose the right one, and if they don't, well, then they're out of luck, not only with her, but they can't propose to anyone else. And, meanwhile, Bassino's friend, he and his friend Antonio goes to Shylock, the moneylender, because they need to get money. And he doesn't trust them because they're Christians, and they don't trust him. There was a lot of prejudice with the Jews, and a lot of hatred towards them. I was just like, I'm reading The Weight of Ink by Rachel Kaddish, and I think it's going to explore that thing as well, themes of that, because they found a really old document from the 1600s written by a famous Jewish person. I don't remember the name. And one of the young scholar is emailing his girlfriend, was explaining how the Jews were treated, and and about how he's excited, but the woman his mentor figure, the older lady that he has to work with, she's kind of mean and judgmental. Of course, we're inside her head too, so we realize there's a little more to the story than her just being cranky. But anyway, so yeah, that also kind of talks about that. And he mentioned Shakespeare and that, what kind of inspired his dissertation and what he's studying actually had to do with this play. Which was a funny, really cool coincidence. I didn't even plan that, because like I have that book, I bought it last year, and I didn't even think about that when I decided I'm going to read it. It was like, it just kind of, I didn't even know that they would mention it. I mean, I knew they were both kind of related to, Jewish religion, would talk about that, but I didn't know that they would mention Shakespeare, and this play. But anyway, and also Antonio is in love with Shylock's daughter Jessica, and they decide to run away and elope. So this was really good. I know, I wish more people would, although I guess I can look at reviews and see what other people say about this, what other people's problems with this one, why people don't talk about this one, and see if I'm right. But this was just really good. Like the speech, the first time, the speech that Shylock says is just, I really love that one. Let me see if I can find, I think, actually, I already read that to you guys in another video, so I'm not gonna, but, here's that famous speech that I've already read to you guys in a video if you've watched it. In Act 3, Scene 1, if you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge? If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? Why revenge? Why revenge? The villainy you teach me I will execute, and it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction. I love that monologue, and actually I had heard that monologue in a Buffy episode from season 1, when in one of the classroom scenes they read that. And of course Cordelia makes her delightful commentary on that. And but yeah, that was the first time, and I was really excited when I came to that monologue and was like, oh my god, that was in Buffy. Hence why I always remember TV shows and movies better than books sometimes. But yeah, this was just really good. And now it's probably colored by the fact that I feel like I'm getting more, first of all, I haven't heard a lot about this one. People don't talk about this one. And also I'm just, I'm actually starting to understand and get into Shakespeare more. So I think that also kind of helps me really enjoy the ones that I'm reading and really like them and fall in love with them. And I think that can sometimes be the key, is, like, I think I'm starting to realize that I think the reason why people don't like hype so much is sometimes it takes away the magic when you're discovering a book for the first time. I've said that already. I've already talked about this before. But yeah, I love this play. It's so great, and I really felt for Shylock's character. I actually kind of felt bad for him, and felt like people were being unfair and judgmental. I mean, and like, Antonio should have actually talked to Shylock before he and his daughter ran out. I mean, maybe he did. I don't remember if they mentioned that he's talked to him before about it, and although I guess he's probably assuming that Shylock would not let him run away with Mary's daughter because he's Christian. And then in a lot of religions, it's this, like, people of two separate religions, it's kind of one of you is gonna have to, if one of you should convert. Like, it's believed that one of you should convert, because two religions clashing together is not necessarily a good thing. It doesn't always work because it's too complicated. It gets kind of messy. even if the couple loves each other. But yeah, this was really good. I'm glad I read it, and it's nice to be able to talk about Shakespeare plays and being excited about them, that ones that I have not heard a lot about, people talk about. Like, it's kind of like it belongs to me in a way, if that makes sense. So there's that one. Okay, so this was the one I decided to add to the list, and that is The Wolf by Leo Carew, and I just actually received my third book's purchase of The Spider, which is the sequel. Now, I admit there are some things in here that I was disappointed by, but this was just such a really cool story, and also the fact that it's different for me. It's a different kind of story. I don't read a lot of stories like this, and it's about this young man who has to take his father's lordship after he gets killed in the middle of a war, and all of a sudden he has the weight of the world on his shoulders when they're already in the middle of a war. So I like how they explore that, and I always like that trope with a character that accidentally becomes the leader, de facto leader, because the original leader got taken from them, and so now they have to take their responsibility, and they're not ready, and they screw up a couple times before they finally see the light. I also like that there's a rivalry, like he has a rival for his father's seat. I thought that was really cool, that because then it allows us to show him earning it and how it's not easy, and has to prove himself. And sometimes the best way to do that is when there's competition. Because then it shows that it determines are you truly the better leader? Because the other leader is actually very charismatic. The other guy is charismatic. He's a warrior, and this is a warrior because they're like Vikings. And so I really like I said, the only thing that takes us down a peg a little bit is that the female characters are lackluster, I feel like, and they do use the Phrygian woman trope, where the woman who becomes his wife gets poisoned at one point. At least no one got killed. They didn't get killed, which is good. And the bad guy, their enemies kind of take the big enemy, kind of takes a backseat to the whole tension of the rivalry between him and the other guy. So I'm hoping that the spider will go back to that, because with that. But yeah, this was really fun, and it's not the best, but it still was fun and enjoyable. I'm glad I read it. And for me, favorites aren't non-flawed books. Favorites can be very flawed books, and it's just all about if I enjoyed the story, and I did. Although I don't really have I'm still trying to piece together what I consider a favorite or not. I'm doing this, but it still took me some time to figure out what would I consider a favorite. But yeah, this was really good. This was such a great read. And I feel like I've heard that only gets better. Okay, next is the one reread I have on this list. And that is The Wastelands. But it was so long ago when I read The Wastelands from the third book in the Dark Tower series that I barely remembered it. The only thing I remember that stood out to me was Blaine the Motto, and he doesn't even come until much later, like towards the climax. And I think we get more of him in the beginning of the fourth book. But, we get to see more of Roland's world in this book. We get to explore it, and all the elements. Like, it kind of makes me think of The Last of Us with its post-apocalyptic world that they find themselves in, and I think it also has a kind of a steampunk feel to it. And Eddie Dean gets to really shine in this one. I feel like that Susanna was the second book, The Drawing of Three was kind of more Susanna's book, and then this one is Eddie's book, and he has a lot to overcome. And I like how his relationship with Roland has a lot of tension there, and it's that kind of thing where you respect this person, you look up to them and see them as a mentor figure, but then they also, their ways of teaching you also kind of piss you off, and they're not always nice to you. They don't coddle you. It's that kind of relationship between Eddie and Roland. And also the bad guys are really fun, and like like I said, Blaine was the most memorable, but like we also, and he's kind of in the background of the looming shadow that they realize they're gonna have to eventually encounter. But then we also have some other, other villains, like the TikTok man, and I can't remember what his little minion was, his little henchman guy. He's that character that's annoying, but you also are like, he's trying so hard to please his master that it's like he might kill you if you make him look bad. And the TikTok man, he's one of those villains where you just don't know if he's gonna snap. Like, he can seem charming, as charismatic and very friendly, but he might snap if you say the wrong thing. And then I also like how the book kind of, you have all these people that are kind of like refugees, all that's left since Roland's world has moved on, as he keeps saying. So it's just, this was so much fun, and I'm glad I reread it because there's so much I didn't remember from my previous reading of this book. And I did start reading book 4. I haven't picked it up. But I think we got to the part that's going to be basically the giant flashback in book 4. The whole wizard in class storyline. But yeah, this was just so much fun and so cool. I just love the Dark Tower world. And I will be picking up the 4th book soon. And continuing it. Okay, so next is another fantasy, and that is, I finally finished Ruin of Kings, although the biggest one, that's the biggest accomplishment, I think, for me personally, is coming up. But the Ruin of Kings, first of all, funnily enough, the one thing that kind of some people throws people off that they don't like about this is something is the plot structure, and I actually really like that. I like how it's 2 people telling the same story but from different angles. I think that's a really cool unique way of telling this story. So you get the lead up to, you get the past that eventually leads up to, these are 2 opposing stories that are crashing into each other that will eventually conjoin and become, will form connective tissue. I think it's such a unique structure. And I also like Kieran as a main character. He's not completely, like the problem I notice with YA main characters, leads, especially female leads, is they tend to be almost too good, like innocent and naive, and and I like how this one, he's a bit naive, but he's not innocent. I like that about Kieran's character, and I like that he's someone that kind of like, he finds out who his biological family is, and they're assholes, and he has to deal with that. I like, we see that kind of like, and there is one character that is actually really good, a good person. It's the youngest child, and he forms, this bond with Kieran, and he's so sweet, but he's all like, there's a threat to him and Kieran becoming friends, which is everyone keep his father is telling him that you can't trust this kid. He's probably going to try to take your inheritance from you, and he's going to be mean to you. But then when he meets Kieran, he's actually really nice and respectful, wants to be this kid's friend and help him survive. I also like that there is one dragon in this, one main dragon called the Old Man. I like him. He's creepy and scary, but he's also kind of charming and fun, and he's also like a big baby, who's having a temper tantrum if he doesn't get his way. And just, I'm still trying to figure out the magic system, but it's still such a cool, fun story. And I had such a good time with this, and I just remembered another book that I put on this list. I totally forgot. So again, I apologize. There's one more book. Okay. Sorry, you guys, I cannot believe I totally forgot about this one. I wish I knew how to edit these videos so I take out things like that, but I don't know how to do that. Is The Shadow What Was Lost by James Islington. This was another story with a really cool concept. A main character who kind of is an orphan, and he doesn't get to, and he's in this kind of a magic school, and the whole power, where he has this forbidden power that people are afraid of, and he has to hide that. It ends up actually being a really cool power. Like what he can do, is really cool. And also the whole how he learns to use it is I feel like is a unique way of how he learns to use his magic, and how he gets access to someone who can teach him. I think that's a really cool approach to that. I also love how we have a female character who isn't just the damsel in distress. As soon as she was introduced and just as love interest, I was nervous that she would just be either get killed off or just would be a damsel in distress, but she actually gets to do stuff. She actually gets to fight back, and she's undercover. She gets to spy and put in this dangerous situation. And of course it does kind of do the twist villain, where that villain, like, where you don't know if you can trust them, and they're kind of like, they pretend to be the main character's friend, but then maybe they're not a friend. They do have those characters, those old mentor type characters who are kind of cranky and, and just don't always give you, the answers that they don't make it easy for you to get the answers. I also, and it was it was such a fun world, such a cool, like, hospital. There is a character of a prince in this, and it was so much fun, and I will be starting the next one soon, but not, I'm still trying to decide between reading The Shadow Rising and the sequel of this, because I do need to read The Shadow Rising. So yeah, this was so cool. I had a good time with it, and I just love this. I enjoyed this so much. Okay. Next we have my very first book I read and finished, and that is Legends of Lattes by Travis Baldree. And I love this. This was so cute and cozy. It's a very simple story. There are stakes, but they're very low. It's just this orc, Viv, just decides that she's done with her life as, her violent and brutal life, and that she just wants to open a coffee shop. But in the village where she goes to open up, no one's ever heard of coffee, so it's all about her opening her coffee shop and the process she goes through and how she learns to do this, and, gathering people to help her. And so it has the found family trope. There is a romance with a succubus, and they both are kind of in a similar situation where they're seen as scary and dangerous and villainous, but they're trying to prove that they're not, that they have feelings, and that they're good, decent folk. And it's such a, and it's such a cute romance, but it doesn't take over the plot. The plot still focuses on her opening the coffee shop. And I love that the main character is an orc, even though she looks like an ogre. Because usually the orcs are just the muscle, the army, the lackeys that work for the bad guy, the true threat. So we actually have an orc who is the main character, and she's very human. So I really like that, and just so many, and the book made me hungry. It was to get all those descriptions, and I just smell the coffee, and it was so much fun, and I think it's a great cozy read. And yeah, I love this. And then we have, so here's the other big fantasy book that took me forever to read, not because I didn't love it, but just committing to this length of a book. That is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, the big boy, his magnum opus, the first book in a 10-book series, and the first book in his first arc. This was, again, just so cool. First of all, it was just so great to finally be able to, yes, I have finally finished it. This was such a cool story. I loved all the characters. I loved Kaladin and Bridge 4. He's such a, you just feel so bad for him. And Dalinar, and how he was a character started as like, a character that you're seeing him one way, but you realize that he has a very dark past, and you just want to know more about that. And Shallan, I related to her the most. Her being a scholar and how she's trying to help her family in any way she can. But, she has to do some, she has to lie and, just to do some crafty things to get, to protect her family. I like how she's a bit of an artist. And just so many great characters. Once again, Brandon Sanderson creates such unique magic systems that almost feel like a science. Like something to do with the weather and storms. That is such a cool concept. I don't see anyone else coming up with something like that. And just the details and everything, and you really get to know the characters and this world and everything and its history. It feels like a world that has such depth and such history. It was so much fun. I'm so glad I finally read this and finished it. But I just had such a good time with it when I was reading it, and I just loved it. And I cannot wait to get to books 2. Okay, and next is the only nonfiction book I have on here. I'm slowly reading more and more nonfiction. This is probably more for nostalgia for what this book is talking about, and that is We Don't Need Roads, the Making a Back to the Future trilogy by Cassine Gaines. First of all, this is clearly written by someone that really cares about this trilogy and respects it and loves it. Maybe even loves it more than me. And it has interviews and, has some gossip and stories about what went on the set and all the troubles the set. So, like, one of the stunt people getting injured and how they had to replace the actor who played George McFly because he wanted more, and like it elaborates on that a lot more. We get more details. And things that we learned some things about making this movie and about how the editors felt and how difficult but how fun it was at the same time. And the easiest one was the third one with the it had the least amount of, because it didn't have as much, you didn't have to do as many special effects with that one, because it takes place in the Old West. And it was more because I'm a fan of this trilogy. I absolutely loved it. And so it was really cool to read a nonfiction about this trilogy and get to learn more about it and get more information. Some of the little bits of info that I already knew but didn't know all the details. Like, it elaborates more on those, but in a respectful way. So, like I said, this is more because I love Back to the Future. So if you love Back to the Future and have not discovered, please check this out. It is really cool. It's a really cool deep dive into Back to the Future and how that movie was made. But yeah, this was really great. And so the last book I'm going to talk about that was a favorite this year was a classic, and that is Anna Karenina. This is, again, another one of those books that took me forever to read. I mean, it's not as long as War and Peace, but still pretty good. Pretty long book. And this is not a happy read. This is kind of a tragic read, a very sad story. I mean, not as sad as Romeo and Juliet, but still pretty tragic. Well, actually, it might be about as sad as Romeo and Juliet. But, this is just about life. And also, has Tolstoy's philosophies and his beliefs and stuff like that. But it's like how these two people, our title character and Levin, and their two different trajectories and their life choices and what results from that, the consequences and the good things that come out of that, and what it means, for them, and how their lives turn out. It's such a complex story with very complex characters. I think Anna's probably the most complex. Now, I should warn you, there is a lot of talk about farming in this book. And a lot of political, there were quite a few political scenes and political discussions in this, which was kind of intriguing. But I gotta admit, it kind of did go over my head a little bit. But it was so great. Such a beautiful story. It's sad. It's long. I will admit that, this is probably not a book for everybody because of its length and because of sad, it can be very sad. And it's just the characters there's not a lot of action going on. Characters are just going about their lives. The most action we get is like, characters fighting over political beliefs. There's a lot of fun characters and there's a lot of drama. But it's just a really good story, very riveting. Like I said, it's not for everybody. Some people probably find this boring and tedious, but I personally loved it. It's definitely a favorite. So those are my favorites of the year so far. Would love to know what some of your favorites are if you have one yet. Maybe you don't have one yet, but if you do, please share in the comments below what your favorite books are, whether it's just one favorite or multiple favorites. Let me know. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell notification below if you want to be notified when I post new videos. And I hope you are enjoying your reading, and I will talk to you all later. All right, bye.